Thanks for being here. I know everyone's really excited to chat. I think Henry Blodgett was on stage yesterday bragging that the Business Insider is bigger than the Wall Street Journal. I think you have a lot to brag about with BuzzFeed. 80 million uniques monthly now, 70 million, puts you ahead of the Times. Am I in the right ballpark?
I think those are ComScore ballpark for ComScore numbers.
Of course, you would never give your numbers out, because ComScore numbers.
Well, we're over 130 million uniques on our internal numbers.
Oh, got it. Okay. Wow. So really big. I wanted to start by asking you, what is BuzzFeed?
God, I never thought about that question. BuzzFeed is a social content site, and I think that when you look at the history of media, every time there's new distribution technologies, people try to stick sort of the old kind of content that has always existed into the new distribution model, and it usually doesn't work that well. And then people come along and they create new kinds of content. And so social content is content that is distributed by people who think it's awesome enough to pass it along to their friends, to share it, to distribute it through social networks. We have the scale of a traditional media company without a printing press or a cable network or a broadcast pipe. Over 75% of our traffic is social. We have a large amount of distribution on Facebook and Twitter and Pinterest and lots of dark social and people sharing through email. And the only way we reach our audience is if people think our content is worth sharing. And so that led to a whole way of thinking about creating content and a whole culture within our company of creating content for people-powered network instead of kind of industrial media distribution technologies.
And when you think about the types of content, I think a lot of people think of BuzzFeed and they think of lists and cat videos and all that kind of stuff. You've also hired Pulitzer Prize-winning reporters, one of whom I worked with closely or sat next to at the Wall Street Journal. You're hiring many of my friends and colleagues. What are they writing, and how does that fit into what BuzzFeed is?
So news and entertainment, we're a news and entertainment company. Some of what we do is news and reporting and is informative, and some of what we do is more for people's hearts and to make people laugh and to inspire people. And so sometimes people get confused between the two. I think that traditionally media in businesses have always had a combination of these two things. So newspapers have crossword puzzles and comics and the Sunday Styles section with like houses you can't afford that you still read about. They're essentially forms of entertainment. When CNN started, WTBS was already existed, and which was old movies and old television shows and things that were being licensed to distribute on these new cable networks. And then CNN came after. And so we were first an entertainment company, and that was what happened. That was what we were doing in the early days of the social web, when what people shared on Facebook and Twitter was what they had for lunch and internet memes and humor. And then as the social web has evolved, we have evolved along with it, first by hiring Ben Smith, who is a very scoop-hungry editor-in-chief, and then expanding to with Miriam Elder from The Guardian, who runs who's our foreign editor, and we have 2 reporters in the Ukraine covering the crisis there. We've reported from inside Syria. We have increasingly, as a lot of companies are pulling back internationally, we're expanding internationally. And then Mark Schufs, who's building our investigative journalism team, and he has hired just this tremendous team of reporters. And because they work on 3-month, 6-month, year-long cycles doing big investigations, you will see a lot of their work in a few months from now, but they're not like they like start blogging or something. They're like working on really big, important stories.
Yeah, they're reporting. It takes time. So is the vision really that everyone is going to come to BuzzFeed for all their news?
The vision is to understand that the way people consume media has changed. Mobile, right now the majority of people accessing BuzzFeed are looking at their content on a mobile device, and they got to the content through a social platform. So it's like the majority is mobile and social together, and that's where people are spending more time looking at phone screens than television screens. And so in a world where media consumption has radically shifted. Media companies are still making primarily if you look at their budgets and their resources and their expertise and their production, they're making media for legacy systems that are not nearly as relevant to particularly younger readers. And so we want people to read. We want people to find great content that entertains them, inspires them, informs them across the platforms that matter to them today. And so we don't care if they come directly to BuzzFeed, although millions of people do. It can be that they're finding our stuff on YouTube. We did 150 million YouTube views last month alone, and that was people seeing BuzzFeed content created by our studio in LA on YouTube, not on BuzzFeed.com, and some of that was embedded, and some of that was on mobile. Actually, about half of it was on mobile, and so we are. We don't want to force people. We're like media companies used to be about being authoritative, and still some are very authoritative. We're more empathetic, and we want to make content that people feel that can relate to and can share and can consume the way they want to consume it.
BuzzFeed's the empathetic media company. I think that tagline. No, you shouldn't use that tagline. But so a lot of this vision, or this entire vision, is supported by advertising, and you guys have done a lot on native ads and sponsored posts, and finding the kind of ad format that fits within this social ecosystem. My question is, CPMs are industry-wide are falling. I mean, I think I saw some data saying they're about 10%, down 10% per year. So what does that mean for BuzzFeed? Does it mean that you have to keep getting the traffic up and expanding to these areas because you've just got to make up for declining CPMs? I mean, what does that look like?
So BuzzFeed's a little different in that we're not selling adjacency. So CPMs are usually like, oh, this is quality content, and then next to it, off to the side, is an ad, and you pay a CPM for that ad. Our model is we built a platform for distributing social content, and that includes data science, includes a CMS, it includes a public-facing brand, and a bunch of other things. And then we use that platform for news, we use it for entertainment, and we use it for branded content. And so when a brand works with us, they are essentially using our platform plus distribution, plus our audience, plus media to tell their story on the social web. And because there's no space constraints on the internet, so like partly CPMs are based on this mistaken notion that there's limited space, and so you have like one article and one ad, and how much space you use on the ad says something about your media organization, and how much you value editorial versus advertising and all that. Well, with branded content, there's no space limitation. So we want to turn branded content up to 11 because it doesn't interfere with the reading the content. And we want to turn news up to 11, and we want to turn entertainment up to 11. And they all can spread to people who want to share and engage with that content without there being any conflict, because we're not just making one newspaper where we have to decide what proportion of content goes on which page, or we're not just have 24 hours of a cable channel and we're going to decide what proportion. We can do those things and push them all to where they should naturally go.
But there's still sort of pricing pressure on the fact that there's so much online, right? So maybe, I don't know, I mean, in that branded content model, is that a CPM model? And can you talk a bit about what you're seeing in the environment of what is happening to prices in your model?
We haven't had this. I've read about this issue, but we haven't had this issue.
The prices are going up.
And
yeah.
we've seen we've seen that we're increasingly able to add more and more value as BuzzFeed grows, and as we develop more technology, and as our branded content team grows. There's more and more value we can provide to advertisers. As video team becomes bigger and bigger, we have seen a lot of demand for that. And so we have a vertically integrated product that includes content creation and the platform and a big audience that we can distribute content to, and that's pretty compelling for advertisers and brands that want to tell their story in an authentic way.
I think it'll be interesting to watch as more people get into branded content too. I mean, I think it's a buzzword. The Times is doing it. The Wall Street Journal's doing it. So you guys are ahead of the curve. So I wanted to ask you, Bob Iger said this week that he was in talks to buy you guys, not very recently, but he, I guess, confirmed some rumors about it, just that there were some early stage talks. Why were you talking about selling to Disney, and Why do you think you're worth $1 billion, which was a price floated?
So I never said I thought we were worth $1 billion, and I would never say that. And I'll just say that we're not in talks to sell a company to anyone, and I'm incredibly excited about building a big independent company, and I think the people who work with me know that I'm incredibly excited to build a big company, and that's what we're focused on.
So not talking to anyone now in terms of being acquisition.
No, not.
Okay, excellent. What about buying anyone? Are you guys talking from that side of the acquisition?
We don't have a big machine that looks around at companies. Just that occasionally we have like notions of things that might be interesting, but there's nothing in particular right now that we're exploring.
So for those of you who don't know, and many of you probably do, but Jonah was also the brains behind the Huffington Post and the tech there back in the day. And one thing that's interesting to me is, I think you guys are already a lot stronger off than the Post was, which was obviously a different time and slightly different model. But someone told me that, I think I'm gonna get these numbers right, but maybe that when the Huffington Post sold to AOL, it was doing about $36 million in revenue and not making money. And my sources say you guys did about $60 million in revenue maybe last year, and I'm sure.
Who are your sources?
I don't know. Are they correct? Is that $60 million last year in revenue?
No, I'm really curious. Who are your sources? Like
informed individuals.
I mean, we're pretty transparent about. We're pretty transparent about the business, and we talk a lot about the stuff we're doing and new products and the way we think about the space. We don't share our revenue numbers, and we don't talk about things where we would have to speak for someone else. So if we're talking to if we're doing a business deal with someone, or if someone is, has their story, we want to let them tell their own story.
I think you can trust that number, unless Jonah wants to dispute it here, which he's welcome to do. But my point is that you guys are, you're doing well. And actually, I should say, and also we're profitable, although I don't know exactly what that means. But maybe you can just reflect a little bit on what's changed. I mean, what it was like at the Huffington Post, which in many ways was a precursor. A lot of these same virality, social dynamics were there. And what you guys have sort of cracked that I think many other new media sites going after this hadn't.
So maybe I'm thinking of this because it was in this exact space 6 or 7 years ago, but there was a tech meetup, and we showed Huffington Post's front page, the way it looks to the audience, and then we showed what it looks like to the editors, and there was little spark lines showing the click rates of every headline, and people were like, whoa, and when you think back, like, if we showed something like that to this audience today, they would not go, whoa, wow, that's really, it's like that is like assumed that every publisher has data show, that allows them to understand how consumers are interacting with their site. And so I think we've come a long way, since those days, to the point now where we're doing machine learning, and we're doing all kinds of things that go way beyond just like spark lines and clicks. And I think it's all just the media industry catching up to the fact that technology has changed, and like realizing like, oh, we have real-time data feedback on everything we're doing. We didn't have that in print. Now we have it. And oh, that allows you to do X. Oh, wow, it allows you to do Y. It allows you to do Z. And so people are there's a lot of innovation right now. People are exploring a bunch of different models. There's some things that are awesome. There's some things that will probably be misguided, including some stuff BuzzFeed's doing, and where we'll look back in a few years and say, oh, that seemed really promising and interesting, but I think that's an exciting place to be, where there's lots of media entrepreneurship, and you're an example of that as well. And so I think it's pretty fun looking at how much the technology and distribution has changed, and how that's allowing for new kinds of content companies.
Absolutely, and I think you're right. Not only were media companies not using that technology, they were worried or afraid of it, or also anxious that collecting the data and looking at the data would mean that guided editorial 100%. And that's not always the case. And we we consume it ravenously and just use it to inform our own decisions. And I think you're seeing the bigger companies come around to that now.
Yeah, and I think you're even seeing an extreme where in some cases people over-optimize and they try to get every last click instead of sometimes trusting your gut or having a vision for where things are headed in the future. And the other thing is I also think that there will be a lot of different models, and if you are doing, say, a subscription model, that has an influence on the kind of content you end up producing. You know, you end up wanting to really satisfy a defined group, which is your subscribers, and attract new subscribers. But it's a particular type of relationship you have with your customer, and that leads to a certain type of media, even in a subconscious way. And if you're making something, if you're making media for, where your Pinterest is where it's being distributed, you think in a very different way of how are people behaving on that platform. And if you're making something for Twitter, it's kind of very, very different. And so I think that is leading to a lot of diversity in the kinds of media people are making, and that's like a good thing for the industry as well.
Absolutely. We just have about a minute left, but I often think about how disruptive you guys have been through technology to existing media companies and brands, and we can see that pattern playing out again, though, from the bottom up. I mean, there are sites like Viral Nova that have tiny teams that are getting huge eyeballs. How do you think about not being disrupted?
Yeah, so the only thing I would say about sites like Viral Nova is that if you look at the cable industry, there was a period where CNN actually had to pay $1 to the cable operators to have them carry TBS and CNN. Now, there's billions of dollars flowing the other direction, where the cable operators are paying the content creators, and that essentially that dynamic there's this shift from distribution being the most important thing to content being valued more and people paying for content. The trick for Google and Facebook and Twitter and some of these platforms that are sending traffic to publishers is because it's algorithmically based, they can't go and have a meeting and say, oh, they're meeting with the head of Viacom, and wow, they're really investing a lot of new shows, and they're going to do a lot of this, and we'll pay them a higher affiliate fee because we can tell that these guys are really going to invest in this, in making great content. And then they go meet with another cable network, and they're like trying to do it on the cheap and license things for the lowest possible price, and they'll say, we're not going to pay them as big of an affiliate fee because it is in the interest of the industry as a whole, including the distribution companies, to have better and better content on these platforms. And so I think that is going to be one of the things that we'll have to figure out as an industry is how are the companies that are investing in higher quality content, whether it's news or entertainment or whatever kind of content, and really focusing on that, how are they going to be distinguished from people who are grabbing stuff from other places and trying to spend the smallest amount of money and investing the least in the content?
Why can't we see something like the affiliate fees play out in digital?
I mean, you actually are, and Yahoo wants to buy television shows. YouTube has done grants where they've paid out, I don't know what the number is, but large amounts of money to lots of different video producers. In a way, publishers are or platforms are paying in traffic by sending distribution, and they're even in some cases paying with money. So, but. It makes sense for them to do that only if content creators are really learning and improving and investing in content over a long time. And that's the thing that's hard to figure out. Like, maybe Viral Nova will have a change of heart and say we're going to develop into a company that really makes lots of original content and really invests in it. Or maybe they won't. And if they don't, what's the benefit to platforms to send tons of traffic to them?
I think it's a really exciting issue to watch, an important issue to watch, and it's cool to hear you sort of articulate it that way. And I think we need to wrap it up. But thanks, Jonah. I always learn a lot speaking with you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.